Good evening, all of you, and welcome to this session of English. And today we have to deal with the topic active voice and passive voice. I hope all of you are doing good and welcome to this session. And what is active voice? What is passive voice? Active voice and passive voice are very much needed for the grammar of a language. So let me just share you my screen and I'll tell you what it is. So active and passive voice. In grammar, the voice of a verb indicates when a grammatical subject performs the action or is a receiver of the action. So the voice of a verb, voice means the tense, and also if the subject is important or the object is important in a sentence. So if the subject performs the action or if the subject is very much important for the meaning of the sentence, then we normally use the active voice. Okay. So when a sentence is written in the active voice, the subject performs the action. In the passive voice, the subject in the active voice sentence receives the action. So in all the sentences, not all, mostly the sentences, if the verb is transitive, there will be an object and a subject. So if the subject is very much needed for the or is very much important for the sentence, then we write it in the active voice. And if the object is very much or if the subject or the doer is not very much important, then we use the passive voice. So that is what active voice and passive voice is about. So when a sentence is written in the active voice, the subject performs the action. In the passive voice, the subject in the active voice sentence receives the action. So it actually receives the action, and that is important in the passive voice. So the subject in the active voice becomes the subject. Sorry, the object in the active voice becomes the subject in the passive voice. Okay. So active verbs are stronger and usually more emphatic than verbs in the passive voice because here the subject is important. So when the subject is important, we are laying the stress on the person who or the person or whatever it is, the subject. Okay, it need not always be a person. It can be an inanimate thing or an or if you can have what you call abstract ideas, organizations, etc. as a subject of a sentence. So if that organization or that subject is very much needed, that is you want to stress on that, then you can use the active voice. And they are stronger and usually more emphatic than verbs in the passive voice, because in passive voice, the verbs are normally laying the stress on the action, not the doer. Okay. Now, for example, I've given you a sentence. The award-winning chef prepares each meal with loving care. So here it is an active voice sentence because here the importance is given to the subject or the doer of the sentence. Who is the doer here? The doer here is an award-winning chef. Okay, chef is the subject here. And adjective is award winning because you have given an adjectival phrase award winning. That is just to say or describe the chef, the noun or the subject of the sentence. So the award winning chef prepares each meal with loving care. So who prepares the meal with loving care? It is an award winning chef. So the award winning chef is very much important in the sentence because we want to lay stress on the fact that he is preparing a meal with loving care. Okay. Now, the same sentence can be turned into passive voice. And the same sentence would read in passive voice. Each meal is prepared with loving care by the award-winning chef. Now, the subject in the active voice, the award-winning chef, becomes the object in the passive voice. And The object here, each meal, becomes a subject in the passive voice. For example, each meal is prepared. Here the object in the active voice is the award-winning chef. Chef prepares each meal. What does he prepare? Each meal. So it is the object. When you ask the word what to the verb and you get an answer, then that is the object of the sentence. So what does the chef prepare? He prepares a meal with loving care. So that object becomes the subject in the passive voice. So each meal is prepared with loving care by the award-winning chef. So the object in the active sentence becomes the subject in the passive sentence. Active sentences are about what people or things do. In active sentences, the person or thing does the action. Passive sentences are about what happens to people or things. Action is done to the subject by someone else. Okay. So that is what is passive voice and active voice. Now, passive voice verbs are formed by using a form of the auxiliary verb. Now, what are auxiliary verbs? Auxiliary verbs are also known as helping verbs. Okay. Now, in sentences, normally in almost all sentences, we have a main verb and an auxiliary verb. Main verb is an action verb in the sentence, the verb which does the action. That is very much needed to make the meaning of the sentence. For example, for example, in the sentence, Leela is cooking a meal. Leela is cooking a meal. Here, cooking, the action verb, is the main verb of the sentence. Now, Leela is a singular subject and third person. So then, because it is singular, you have to add is, because it is a present tense sentence and the subject Leela is also singular. So Leela is preparing a meal. So, or preparing a meal. So Leela is singular, so you add is and preparing a meal. So is there, or is an auxiliary verb. Now, what is the function of that auxiliary verb? The function of that auxiliary verb is to give the tense, that is, it is present tense. Okay, so that tense is given by the auxiliary verb, that is, they are supporting the main verb to give the tense of the sentence. So, another example here I have given you is, he loves me. He loves me. So he is the subject, loves is the main verb, and me is the object. Now, when you turn it into passive voice, you have to use any form of the auxiliary verb. The auxiliary verbs are mainly formed from the be verb, that is the root verb in English, be. And from there, you have all the other verbs coming. That is am, if it is I, is, if it is third person singular, then are, if it is third person plural, and in the same way, past tense, if it is singular, third person or first person, then you use was, and if it is plural in the past tense, you use were. And in the present present perfect tenses, we use been or being. Present perfect tense, been, and present perfect continuous, we use being. So these are all the auxiliary verbs which are formed from the main verb or root verb in English, which is be. And so in passive voice, you have to use any of these auxiliary verbs, okay, depending upon the subject of the sentence. Now here in this given example, it is I, which is the subject in the passive voice. So I am, because with always with I, if it is present tense, we always use am. So I am loud. Okay, by him is not very much compulsory. Okay, I am loud. So that is the passive voice. The auxiliaries change the meaning of the verbs from action to condition or from doing to being. He remembers his grandmother. That is, it is an action because he remembers his grandmother. Now, when you change it into passive voice, that action becomes a condition. For example, his grandmother is remembered. Being remembered is a condition in this sentence because you are not actively remembering your grandmother now. I remember my grandmother, or he remembers his grandmother. Now he remembers, it's an action. But when you change it into passive voice, it changes into a condition. His grandmother is remembered by him. His grandmother is remembered. So that action, then it becomes a condition, or it becomes a condition in all times. So that is, being remembered is a condition in the sentence. We can change voice of only a transitive verb, a verb with an object. We cannot change voice of an intransitive verb. That is a very important rule, because sometimes in your examination, in order to check sometimes they give you a sentence without or an object, that is an intransitive verb, and then you can never change it into a passive voice sentence. Okay. For example, she slept soundly. There is no object there. Okay, she slept soundly is an active voice sentence. There is no object. Soundly is not the object. So you cannot change it into passive voice. In the same way, it rained heavily. There is no object in the sentence, so you cannot change it into passive voice. Now, what are the uses of passive voice? To emphasize the receiver of the action instead of the doer. So when the doer of the action is not very important, then we normally use the passive voice. For example, grades for all students are averaged. Grades for all students are averaged. So who is averaging or who is conducting the examination is not very important in the sentence, because we already know that an institution, students study in an institution, and it is done by them or by a university. So the doer is not important. So then we use the passive voice. Grades for all students are averaged. To keep focus on the same subject through several sentences or paragraphs. So if you want to keep the focus on the same subject, then normally you use the passive voice. My sisters and I grew up in Aden. We were educated according to the British system. In 1969, we were given the opportunity to come to India. It was decided that we finish our high school before leaving the country. So my sisters and I grew up in Aden. Okay, we were educated is passive voice. In 1969, we were given is also passive voice, the opportunity to come to India. It was decided. Okay, passive voice, that we finish our high school before leaving the country. So who decided is not important here. So that is why it is a passive voice. When we do not know who performed the action. So when we do not know who performed the action, then we normally use the passive voice. For example, Shruti's calculator was made in Germany. So in Germany, it is in a factory that Shruti's calculator is made. So we do not know in which factory it was made and by whom it was made, because a lot of people are involved in it. So then we all normally use the passive voice. Shruti's calculator was made in Germany, because we don't know who made it. Okay. Now, when we do not wish to mention the doer of the action, sometimes we are reluctant to say that somebody has done something, then we use the passive voice. For example, many problems have been ignored for too long. By whom, if we don't want to mention that, we normally use the passive voice. Many problems have been ignored for too long. Many problems have been ignored for too long by maybe the government or by someone. Okay, but that is not important, or we don't want to mention it. When one wants to sound objective or avoid using the subject I, studies have shown that women tend to live longer than men. So studies have shown, which studies or maybe research work, lot of research work have been done on this topic, and they have shown that women tend to live longer than men. Okay, so if you don't want to bring to the forefront that you have done something, I have read or studies showing that if you don't want to say that, then you can say studies have shown that women tend to live longer than men. Now, use of passive voice is helpful in scientific or technical writing. For example, 20 cc of acid was poured into the beaker. Who poured into the beaker is not important, because here the action is important. The demonstration or the experiment is important. So that we normally use the passive voice. Another usage of passive voice is in newspaper headlines. You might have noticed that when you read a newspaper, in the headlines, they always use the passive voice. Okay, that is India was awarded freedom or something like that, or some place was bombed, etc. So there who bombed is not given, it was bombed, etc., etc. So normally newspaper headlines always use the passive voice. Now another thing which I have to inform you is that there is a Craftics preparatory workshop for NID and NIFT second phase. It is a 3-day online workshop which will be conducted on the 15th, 16th and 17th of February. And you have to pay a fee of only ₹99. And sessions will be conducted by NID and NIFT alumni. For registration, contact 8086 111 216. Now, the following table makes it clear how verbs are used in active and passive voice. Okay. Now, you have the tenses. This is very important, because if you go wrong in tense, then the whole sentence will go wrong. So you have to be very clear as to which tense is to be used in passive voice. So tenses should be very thorough. So if the given sentence is in a simple present tense, for example, I make a cake, it is a simple present tense sentence. Then when you change it into passive voice, it will be a cake object. This object becomes the subject in passive. So cake is the object in active voice. It becomes a subject, a cake. And the simple present tense is you have to use the auxiliary verb. So cake is singular and present tense. So you have to use is. And the third form of the verb, that is the past participle of the verb make, is made. That is third form. As you study, it is a third form. The first one is make, the past tense is made, and the participle form is also made. So a cake is made. By me is optional. A cake is made by me. You can say, if you do not say also, it is important. If you don't want to bring to the forefront that I have done it, I make a cake is made by me. By me is correct, but if you do not use by me also, it is correct. I am making a cake is present continuous tense. Present continuous tense is normally formed with am or is or are according to the subject. If it is I am, if it is third person singular, he or she or any name, it is. And if it is a plural subject, then it will be are. So here it is I. So I am making a cake. And present continuous tenses are always formed by adding ing to the main verb. So make plus ing will be making. So I am making a cake. Now in the passive voice, that cake becomes the subject. So a cake. Then because cake is also singular, you have to use is. And for present continuous tenses, when it is changed into passive voice, you have to use being. So a cake is being made by me. Again, you have to use the past participle of the verb, and that is made. So a cake is being made by me. Clear? Now, present perfect tense is I have made a cake. Present perfect tense we always use when an action has just been completed. So I have made a cake. So present perfect will always have has or have plus past participle of the verb. Now I will always take have, not has. Even if it is singular, I will always take have, not has. So if the subject had been he or she or Leela, then you can use has. So I have made a cake. Now when you change it into passive voice, it will be a cake has been. Because cake is singular, you have to use has been. In perfect tenses, you always use been. Okay. And in continuous tenses, when you change into passive voice, you use being. So a cake has been made by me. Okay. A cake has been made by me. Now, present perfect continuous. Present perfect continuous is an action which started in the past and is continuing even now. It is not over. Action which started in the past and is still continuing is present perfect continuous. So I have been making a cake. So I have been making a cake for the last 1 hour, you can say. So the action started 1 hour back and is still continuing. So that is present perfect continuous. So I have been making a cake. Now present perfect continuous can never be changed into passive voice. You don't have the passive voice of present perfect continuous. Now the same thing applies to past tense. I made a cake. Okay, I made a cake, a simple past tense. Now change it into passive voice, a cake. Now in order to show that it was past tense and cake is singular, you use the auxiliary verb was. A cake was made by me. If it had been cakes, plural, then you will write cakes were made by me. So here it is only one cake. So a cake, and it is past tense, was made by me. Now, if it was past continuous tense, I was making a cake when my friend dropped in, you can say. So I was making a cake, past continuous tense. Then you have to change it, and in the passive voice, it will be a cake was being made, because continuous tenses always take being. So a cake was being made by me. Now, past perfect tense is I had made a cake. Okay, I had made a cake. That is an action which was completed in the past. A cake had been made by me. So when you change it into passive voice, a cake had been, because in perfect tenses you use been, and in continuous tenses you use being. So that is a very important structure, or a very important tip. That is, for continuous tenses in passive voice you use being, and for perfect tenses in passive voice, you use been, B-E-E-N. So a cake had been, had shows that it is past tense, had been made by me. Now we come to future tense. I will make a cake. I will make a cake tomorrow, maybe. It is future tense. Now change it into passive voice. A cake will be made. Will never change into would. Okay. A cake will be made by me. Again, you have to use the past participle of the verb. So a cake will be made by me. Clear? Now, I will have made a cake by tomorrow. I will have made a cake by tomorrow is future perfect tense. That is, you will have completed doing something by some time tomorrow. So then you change into a cake will have been made. That is the perfect tense. You always have to use been. So a cake plus to show future tense, you use will. And to show perfect tense, you use have been made by me tomorrow. Now, future continuous tense, I'll be making a cake tomorrow. Can never be changed into passive voice. So future continuous doesn't have a passive voice usage. Okay, it cannot be changed. Now, and also you cannot have future perfect continuous also. So there are some verbs like ask, offer, teach, tell, lend, promise, sell, throw, get, gave, etc. Okay, not get, gave, etc. So all these are some of the gives, give, etc. All these are some of the verbs which never take or which are followed by two objects. And I have given you an example with the verb give, which can take two objects. He gave me the book is in active voice sentence, is an active voice sentence. He gave me the book. And there are two objects in the sentence. One is me and the other is book. So if you ask the question, what did he give you? He gave me a book. To whom did he give the book? You get the answer. He gave me the book. So when you ask the question whom, you get an answer. When you ask the question what, you also get an answer. So both are objects. Okay. Now, whenever you have two objects in a sentence, a thing or an inanimate object will always be the direct object. An inanimate thing, a thing which doesn't have life, will always be the direct object. And something or someone is always an indirect object. A person or an animal or whatever it is will always be something or someone which has life or who has life will always be the indirect object. So here the indirect object is me and the direct object is book. So he gave me the book. That is active voice. Also, you can say he gave the book to me. So in whatever thing you have to stress, whichever point you have to stress, you can use it. He gave me the book means you are stressing on me. Now, suppose you want to stress on the fact that the book was given to you, then you can say he gave the book to me. So that book is stressed in the second sentence and he gave me the book, me is stressed in the first part. Now change it into passive voice. In the first sentence, he gave me the book. When you change it into passive voice, it will be, I was given the book by him. I was given the book by him. Okay. I, first person, was singular. Past tense. Given is the past participle. Give, gave, given. So that is a participle form. I was given the book. That is the part which you have to stress because in active voice, he gave me the book. So I was given the book by him. Or you can also say the book was given to him, given to me by him. So if you want to stress that you are important, the object in the active voice, me is given importance, and you can change it into I was given the book by him. But suppose you want to stress on the fact that the book is important, then you can start the sentence in passive voice with the book was given to me by him. So both ways are correct. Now, what is an imperative sentence? An imperative sentence is a sentence which gives orders. Okay, orders or commands is the meaning of imperative. So an imperative sentence in the passive voice has the following form. Let plus object plus be plus past participle. This is a structure which you have to follow. Let plus object plus be plus past participle. So let, you have to start the sentence with let. It becomes the object. In the example I have given you, let it. Then be plus past participle for do is done. Let it be done at once. The active voice sentence of this passive voice construction will be do it at once. Okay. Sometimes the teachers might give you commands, do it at once. So then when you change it, let it be done at once. Okay, let it be done at once. That will be the passive voice construction of do it at once. Now, to change interrogative sentence starting with WH, we add the WH word before the passive form of the sentence. For example, what are you eating? It's a WH question. What are you eating? That is an active voice here. What are you eating? You is given importance. Now, when you change it into passive, what is being eaten by you? That what will remain in that position itself at the beginning of the question. What? Now, what are? Because you always takes are. So, what is being eaten? Because it is present continuous tense. What are you eating is present continuous tense. So what is being eaten? Being shows that it is continuous tense. Is shows that it is present tense. And eaten, that is a past participle of the verb eat. So what is being eaten by you? Now another sentence might be, or another question is, whom have you called? Whom. That is also a WH question. Whom, because it's you, you have to use the verb have, because you have. So whom have you called is active voice. When you change it into passive voice, that whom changes into who. Who has been called by you? Because whom we always use in the objective place. Okay. Whom is always used in the objective place and who is always used in the subjective place. So who has present tense, been is perfect tense, has been called by you. Whom have you called is present perfect question. So who has been called by you? That is passive voice. So I hope that these are some of the tips which you have to keep in mind when you do or when you convert active voice sentences to passive and passive voice sentences to active voice. This is very important tips. The things which you have to keep in mind, just a recap of the important points is, first of all, you have to find out what is the tense of the sentence which has been given to you. If the sentence given to you is present tense, you change it into the passive voice. Don't change that present tense into past tense or future tense. The present tense will always be in the present tense form in passive voice. If this is in past tense, it will be past tense in the passive voice. Another thing is you have to see whether it is simple present tense, present continuous, or present perfect tense. If it is simple present tense, then you change it with is or are according to the subject and the past participle of the verb. If it is present continuous, then you have to use according to the subject is or are. Then with that, you have to use being plus past participle of the verb. If it is perfect tense, then you have to use is or are, or sorry, has or have, plus been, plus past participle of the verb. This is something which you have to keep in mind. And also another important thing is when you get a sentence, you have to see whether there is an object to the sentence, whether the verb is transitive or intransitive. Intransitive verbs can never be changed into passive voice. They will never have the passive voice form. So these are some of the tips with you, which you have to keep in mind. Also, you have to keep in mind if it is a question beginning with WH, that WH part will be at the beginning of the passive voice construction also. So now we go to the exercises. For the questions, directions for the questions, a sentence has been given in active or passive voice. Out of the 5 or 4 alternatives suggested, select the one which best expresses the same sentence in active or passive voice. Her manners pleased us very much. The options given are, we were very much pleased. Her manners pleased us very much. We were very much pleased on her manners. We are very much pleased with her manners. We pleased her very much with manners. We were very much pleased with her manners. So which might be the answer? Her manners pleased us very much. So what is the tense of the sentence? The tense of the sentence is past tense. Her manners pleased. So it is simple past tense. So when you change into simple past tense into passive voice, the answer will be her manners pleased us very much. Then when you change it, us will become the subject. So we, and it is past tense. We were very much pleased, and you always use the preposition with, not on. Okay, with her manners. So we were very much pleased with her manners. D is the answer. The driver was blowing the horn. So the sentence is in past continuous tense. Was shows that it is past tense, and continuous tense, that is blowing. Blow plus ing. The driver was blowing the horn. So the horn is an object in the sentence. Now, how will you use, or how will you turn it into passive voice? The horn will become the subject in passive voice. The horn, as it is continuous tense, horn is singular, past tense, was, then you have to use being. The horn was being blown by the driver. Blown is the past participle or verb of blow. So the horn was being blown by the driver. The thief was caught by the police. The thief was caught by the police. Now, what tense is it? It is past tense, simple past tense. Now, change it into this is an active voice sentence. So the sentence which is given is passive voice. You have to change it into active voice. The thief was caught by the police. So the here, actually police catch the thief. So it is passive voice. The thief was caught by the police. Now can you change it into passive, active voice? So how will you change it into active voice? The answer will be the police caught the thief. The police caught the thief. That is, was caught by the police. So by the police becomes the subject. So the police caught the thief. The hunter shot the tiger. So how will you change it? First of all, you have to find out what tense it is and then change it into passive voice. The hunter shot the tiger. Here, the hunter is the subject, doer, and tiger is the object. So, bring the object to the forefront. The tiger was shot by the hunter. Don't change the verb into killed. Okay. So the verb should be the same thing but different form. The tiger is singular. Past tense, was, participle of shoot is shot. So the tiger was shot by the hunter. They drew a circle in the morning. They drew a circle in the morning. Can any one of you tell me what might be the answer for this? They drew a circle in the morning. This is an active voice sentence where you have they, the subject, is doing the action. So they drew a circle in the morning. Now, the object of this sentence is a circle. So it is simple past tense. So you have to say a circle. Circle is singular. So a circle was drawn. Draw is the present tense form. Drawn is the participle form. So a circle was drawn by them in the morning. So B is the answer. A circle was drawn by them in the morning. They will demolish the entire block. They will demolish the entire block. So it is an active voice. So when you change it into passive voice, it will be the entire block is the object. So the entire block will be demolished by them because this is future tense. So they will already shows that it is future tense. So the entire block, that is the object, will be demolished by them. This is simple future tense. So the entire block will be demolished by them. The answer is D. We have warned you. We have warned you is active voice. So how will you change it into passive voice? We have warned you. Here we is the subject and you is the object. So bring the object to the front part or make it the subject. You, and it is a perfect tense sentence. You, sorry, it is past tense. You have been warned by us. So it's a perfect tense sentence. We have warned you. We warned you is past tense. We have warned you means it's a perfect tense sentence. So then you have to use been. You have been warned by us. You have been warned by us. So it is A. Now, the shopkeeper lowered the prices. This is also an active voice sentence. The shopkeeper lowered the prices. Shopkeeper is the subject and prices is the object. So, bring the prices to the forefront and you have the prices. Prices is plural. So, make the verb also plural. The prices were, because it's past tense, were lowered by the shopkeeper. The prices were lowered by the shopkeeper. That is B. They have published all the details of the invention. They have published all the details of the invention. This is also active voice sentence. So make it details of the invention becomes the object of the active voice sentence. So make it into passive voice. You can say the details, all the details of the invention they have published. So the details of the all the details of the invention have been, it's a perfect tense sentence. So have been published by them. Have been published by them. So it is A. He teaches us grammar. He teaches us grammar. So can you change it into passive voice? He teaches us grammar. So he is a subject, us is the object. So when you change it into passive voice, we are taught, because us is the objective case, we becomes the subjective case. So we is plural, are participle form of teach is taught. We are taught grammar by him. Yes, Arun Kumar, you're correct. It is B. Now, all trust and honest person. All trust and honest person. So here it is simple present tense. So change it into passive voice. Honest person. Honest person is an object. All is a subject. So an honest person is trusted by all. An honest person is trusted by all. That is the passive voice. In winter, people do not take a bath. So in winter, people is a subject, do not take a bath. A bath is an object. So when you change it into the active voice, sorry, passive voice, it will be a bath is not taken by people in winter. A bath is not taken by people in winter. Now, when options are given, the options might be very, very close. You have to be very, very careful in choosing it. Now, here in B, B is the correct answer. You have another option in B also. A bath is not taken by the people in winter. Now, in winter, people do not take a bath. Which country or people is not very specific. You have not used the in the question. So do not use that part also, that the in the answer also. So if you choose D, there is only a very slight difference in by the people. So we do not know which people or to which country the people belong. It's just a generalized statement. So the answer will be a bath is not taken by people in winter, not by the people in winter. Okay. Sugar is grown in Cuba. So change into active voice. The answer will be sugar is grown in Cuba. Then you will have to, sometimes in certain sentences, there will not be a doer in the passive voice. So then you will have to substitute. So normally you can substitute in, this is a generalized statement. So you can say, they grow sugar in Cuba. They grow sugar in Cuba. They is the subject. Now, Aditya saw Dinesh shopping at the mall. Aditya saw Dinesh shopping at the mall. So this is an active voice sentence. When you change it, object is Dinesh. So Dinesh is singular and saw is past tense. So Dinesh was seen shopping at the mall by Aditya. B is the answer. Dinesh was seen shopping at the mall by Aditya. Bipin had not been told about the meeting. Bipin had not been told about the meeting. So who had not told him is not given here. So also you will have to substitute some indefinite pronouns there. So then it will be had not been told about the meeting. So nobody had told him. So then when it is changed into passive voice, nobody, sorry, this is a passive voice sentence which is given. You have to change it into active voice. Nobody told Bipin about the meeting. Nobody told Bipin about the meeting. So that is the actually active voice sentence. Now, why did he deprive you of the membership? This is a question which is in passive voice. Why did he deprive you of the membership? That is an active voice sentence. So when you change that question into passive voice, the answer will be B. That is, why were you, past tense. So you will always take were. So why were you deprived, participle form, of the membership by him? Why were you deprived of the membership by him? That is, D is the answer. The agreement between the management and the workers was drafted by an advisory board. The agreement between the management and the workers was drafted by an advisory board. This is an active voice sentence. So here, how will you change it? This is a passive voice sentence. The agreement between the management and the workers was drafted by an advisory board. This is a passive voice construction which you change into active voice. So an advisory board drafted the agreement between the management and the workers. That is simple past tense. An advisory board drafted the agreement. So the agreement was drafted. An advisory board drafted the agreement between the management and the workers. B is the answer. Put up the tent. Put up the tent is a what you call command or an order. So how will you change it? I had told you for sentences which have or for sentences which show a command, you have to use let. So put up the tent will be let the tent be put up. Put up the tent will be let the tent. Tent is the object. So let the tent be put up. Let the tent be put up. Was the question answered? Was the question answered? Now, was the question answered? Now, that is passive voice. Now, when you change it into active voice, did they answer the question? Was the question answered? Who is answering actually? They. So, did they answer the question will be the active voice question. Now, here in this question, the remaining questions, I have not given you the options. So, the teacher gave me a book to read. The teacher gave me a book to read. So here the teacher is the subject, gave is a verb, and a book is the object. And me is also an object. So how will you change it? The teacher gave me a book to read. I had given you the same question in the example. A book was given to me by the teacher a book was given to me by the teacher to read. Or you can write, I was given a book to read by the teacher. I was given a book to read by the teacher. Shut the door and leave. That is a command. So shut the door and leave is a command. So how will you change it? That is, let the door be shut. Let the door be shut. Let the door be shut. The man had the mechanic fix his car. The man had the mechanic fix his car. Here also you have two objects. One is mechanic and the other is car. So how will you change it? The man had his car fixed by the mechanic. The man had his car fixed by the mechanic. The man had the mechanic fix his car. Instead of that, you can say the man had his car fixed by the mechanic. So that is a passive voice construction. Don't make a noise. So this is also a command or an order. So when you change it into passive voice, it will be let not a noise be made. Let not a noise be made. You have to start with let. So let plus object will be let not the noise be made or let not a noise be made. India expected to win the World Cup. India expected to win the World Cup. That is past tense. And you will change it into It was expected by India to win the World Cup. It was expected by India to win the World Cup. It was expected. That is passive voice construction. It was expected by India to win the World Cup. That is a passive voice of the sentence. You will have to pay the penalty as you have not complied with the rules of the company. So when you change it into passive voice, a penalty, you will have to pay the penalty. Penalty is object. So that a penalty will have to be paid by you as you have not complied with the rules of the company. A penalty will have to be paid by you. A penalty is object. A penalty will have to be paid by you as you have not complied with the rules of the company. Even a large ant may kill a big elephant. So when you change it, this is active voice. When you change it into passive voice, even a big elephant might be killed by a large ant. So a large ant may kill a big elephant. May will change into might. Even a big elephant might be killed by a large ant. Might be killed by a large ant. Who has stolen my binoculars? Then this is a question with a WH or what or who or where or such questions. So then who has stolen my binoculars? So when you change it into passive voice, you have to say by whom has my binoculars been stolen? Who has stolen is perfect tense. So by whom has my binoculars been stolen? By whom has my binoculars been stolen? His sudden arrival surprised everyone. His sudden arrival surprised everyone. So when you change it into active voice, sudden arrival surprise is passive voice. So when you change it into active voice, it will be everyone was surprised by his sudden arrival. That is active voice. So everyone was surprised by his sudden arrival. None saw her in the party. None saw her in the party is passive voice again. You have to change it into active voice. It will be no one saw her in the party. No one saw her in the party. I remember my father taking me to parties. I remember my father taking me to parties. So I remember my father is active voice. So I remember being taken. My father taking me to parties is present continuous tense. So you have to use being. I remember being taken to parties by my father. So here that is taking me to parties is present continuous tense. So then you will have to change it into the same tense has to be also followed in passive voice. So I remember my father taking me to parties will be, I remember being taken to parties, being plus participle form, being taken to parties by my father. Now change the following into active voice. The school was struck by lightning. So the answer will be lightning struck the school. The school was struck is passive voice. Lightning struck the school. This morning, the burglar was arrested by the police. So this is passive voice. Change it into active voice. The police arrested the burglar this morning. The police arrested the burglar this morning is the active voice sentence. One type of air pollution is caused by hydrocarbons. So hydrocarbons, this is also passive voice. So change it into active voice. Hydrocarbons cause one type of air pollution. Hydrocarbons is becomes the subject in the active voice. So hydrocarbons cause one type of air pollution. Now, an elaborate supper was made for the minors was prepared by Mr. Patel and his children. So Mr. Patel and his children is an object, a by agent here. So that by agent will become the subject in the active voice. So Mr. Patel and his children prepared an elaborate supper, was prepared. That is simple past tense. So Mr. Patel and his children prepared an elaborate supper for the miners. The cookies were stolen by the Mad Hatter. So here Mad Hatter is the object. Here in the by agent in the sentence becomes the subject. Mad Hatter stole the cookies because it is simple past tense. Mad Hatter stole the cookies. Now, just remember that active voice and passive voice are very much needed for the meaning of a sentence, or to make it, to give the complete meaning to a sentence is very much important. And also remember that if the subject is not very important, but the action is important, then you use passive voice. But if the subject is important, then you use active voice. And active voice sentences can never be changed into passive voice if it is an intransitive verb. And I hope everything is clear to you. Look at the tense, not only whether it is simple, whether it is present tense, past tense, or future tense, but also you have to be clear whether it is simple present tense, present continuous, or present perfect tenses. So with all these, you will have to make slight changes. When you use present continuous tense, you use being, and when you use present perfect tense, you use being. I hope everything is clear to you. So we end our class or this session for today. Till we meet next time. Thank you. Have a nice day.